Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming.
We're so excited that you're here today.
Yeah. We're so glad you guys all came. We're so glad you want to hear about our organizations. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for people to trickle in. But my name is Julia.
And my name is Emmy. Nice to see you guys all.
Yeah. We're actually so excited you all came. While we're waiting for more people to show up, do you guys want to, we're thinking about having everybody introduce themselves on the chat just so we kind of have an idea of who's here. I know that a bunch of counselors sent out emails about us, so I know that's probably where some of you guys heard about us. So I know there's people from LA, from other places. Where else? Oh, Berkeley. Do you want to let them know? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Charlie. Yeah. And we know that there are also some parents and some kids here from quarantine. So thank you guys all so much for coming. I can't see the chat, but you guys should put in the chat. Okay, in the chat, can you guys put your name? Actually, you don't have to put your name. We can see your name. Put put where you're from. Put your city.
Put where you're from, yeah. Put your, yeah.
And then
your grade and the city you're from.
Yeah, exactly. Your grade and your city, and maybe one thing that you're interested in learning or hearing about today. If there's anything in particular you want to know about teens volunteer quarantines, so that we can see.
We can
Grade 12. I'm in grade 12.
Same here.
A great grade. College apps are really fun.
Yeah.
Okay. In Vista, yeah, I saw a lot of signups from there too. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah, we're so excited that you guys are all here. We're really glad that you're all interested in hearing about our organizations.
We have so much to tell you guys. Okay, let's see what time is it. Okay, so I think we can wait a few more minutes just for people.
I think we'll wait like a minute or two more for more people to trickle in.
In the meantime, put your stuff in the chat. Ohio.
Ooh.
Awesome. That's really awesome. I love that we have people from Ohio. Mountain View, 8th grade. Awesome. How did you market your products? We're going to talk a lot about marketing. We have a whole section of marketing.
Well, we have a whole thing about that.
Yeah,
so we'll cover it.
We'll definitely get to that. You guys can definitely
Arizona.
Have Palo Alto. Well, if you're from Palo Alto, what school do you go to? I go to Gunn. Cool. Los Angeles. I'm jealous. I love LA.
LA is really cool. I wish I lived there, honestly. I think it'd be really fun.
Honestly, me too. Yeah. LA is so dope. Okay. Let's wait till like 5:05 maybe.
That sounds good because people are still trickling in.
Yes. Okay, I'm reading the chat. Put your cities. If you guys are new, me and Emmy really want to see who's here today. So if you guys could put the city that you're coming from and your grade, or if you're not in high school or not in middle school, you can tell us like where you found us from. So I know that there are some quarantines parents here. We're so excited. Definitely other people as well.
Yeah, this is all very exciting. Yeah. Oh yes.
This is super exciting. Yeah. Oh, hi, Angie. Nice seeing you. I think there are maybe some quarantines teachers here too.
Oh, cool.
A lot of people from LA. LA is
a lot. And from all over the US. This is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
Julia and I are just from the Bay Area.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not expecting this, but this is super cool. Okay. Time's up. Okay. We'll wait like one more minute and then we'll give you guys kind of a little introduction. But just to introduce ourselves really quickly, my name is Julia. Maybe some of you guys know that. I'm the founder of Quarantunes and
my name is Emmy. I'm the founder of teensvolunteer.org.
Yay. Okay. San Rafael, awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so for everyone that just joined, feel free to drop your where you're from and your grade in the chat so we get a sense of where everyone's coming from.
Yeah. Me and Emmy are both seniors in high school. I think we have a lot of high schoolers here. But yeah, so we're going to talk about this a lot more later, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to get these organizations up and running and as big as they are as a high schooler. So we'll definitely talk about how it was for us and definitely like how it can be for all of you. Okay, I think we can probably go ahead.
I think we can get started. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Emmy will give you a little rundown of what we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah, so here is an outline of everything we'll be talking about today. So first, we'll talk about how Teens Volunteer and Quarantunes were founded and kind of our origin story. And then we'll delve into the process of starting an organization in general, building your website, growing your audience, getting the word out, and much more. And then we'll end with questions from the audience.
Yeah, so our presentation is probably not going to take too long. We timed it. It's probably going to take like 25 to 30 minutes. So there's definitely going to be a good chunk of time to hear your guys' questions and kind of address what you guys want to hear about. But yeah. Okay, so as Emmy mentioned, we're just going to go ahead and get started by talking a little bit about who we even are. I know some of you guys might already be familiar with us, but some of you might have no idea. So yeah, we'll just give you a brief background about us.
Yeah, so I founded Teens Volunteer in May of 2018, and what it is a free website that connects California teens to volunteer opportunities. So currently we list over 600 opportunities that are both conducted in person in California as well as virtual volunteer opportunities because of the pandemic. And so far we've been able to connect over 5,000 teens to volunteering, which is really, really exciting for us.
Fun fact, I was using Teens Volunteer before I met Emmy because I was looking for a way to get the word out about Quarantunes and about the volunteering opportunities that we provide. And so I was like doing some Google searches and I found Teens Volunteer and I was using Teens Volunteer to promote Quarantunes, like to find teens. And so like a lot of months later, Emmy actually reached out to me, but it was just a funny coincidence that I was using her company. But yeah, okay. So a little bit about me. So some of you guys might know this, but Quarantunes is a platform that was created actually just a few months ago in March after shelter-in-place restrictions were put in place. And what it does is it connects teen musicians and artists and also chefs. I actually think there's someone teaching a public speaking class right now too, but just generally teenagers with children to provide virtual music lessons, virtual art lessons, and theater and other kinds of things as well. And so we've also given a ton of workshops to the public and to our teachers on like how to teach lessons. And also we've given classes to the public. Like over the summer, we ran a really cool free summer songwriting class, which had a ton of participants. We've given free classes on audio engineering and a lot of other things, as well as like a class taught by a top 20 Billboard artist. And so, yeah, we do that as well. And in terms of numbers, we currently have over 800 students and 200 teacher volunteers. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to talk about was really how we got from like a seedling of an idea to a full-fledged organization. And I think both me and Emmy will agree that this was probably the hardest part of this whole process. It's just really getting up off the ground. And so I know that some of you guys might be wondering about that as well, because once you have your idea, it's kind of difficult to know what the next steps are from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I founded Teens Volunteer during my freshman year, which was May of 2018. And, during that time, I was looking to find volunteer opportunities in my area, and I realized that there wasn't a free and easy to use resource for teens to find volunteer opportunities. And I knew that teenagers all over the country, they want to volunteer, whether it's for volunteer credit at their high schools or to boost their resume, or even just because they want to help out their community. So I started Teens Volunteer then. And when I started off, it was super small. I was just focused in Berkeley, where I live, and some of the surrounding cities. And then once I had, grown the website there and reached a lot of people, we expanded to the Bay Area. And then, this past summer, we actually ended up expanding to all of California. So now we are in 4 major metropolitan areas, including Sacramento, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and San Diego. I think that this idea of starting off small and growing as you go is really, really important in founding an organization. And I think that if you start too fast and you expand too much, you don't have as much of an impact. So I think that's a really big takeaway that I had when founding Teens Volunteer. So another thing to note is that for almost the first 2 years, I was working just by myself on Teens Volunteer, which is a little bit crazy, but I spent a year designing the site by myself, and then I spent a year just working on it and marketing it by myself. And I think that our website could have grown so much more if I had started a team a lot earlier. So that's one of my other takeaways or my other points is to start a team. So I ended up adding some more team members at the start of quarantine, and now we have a team of over 10 people. And they have been instrumental in our success. I think that a lot of it can be attributed to their hard work. I've delegated all these tasks, and they're all working really hard in their specific areas. I think that Julia will agree that having a team is really, really important in your organization. And then the final takeaway I had was to seek out advice from professionals. So I know that I and Julia and other teenagers have never started an organization before this, and you often don't have a lot of expertise in the areas that you're working in. So for me, I went to different professionals who are working in web design and marketing, and I asked them all these questions and I got all their advice, and I think that really helped get Teens Volunteer off the ground.
Yeah. So did I just skip it? Okay. So for Quarantunes, we actually had a pretty different story from Teens Volunteer. We kind of went backwards in terms of their steps, which really shows that it can be done in so many different ways. There's not just one correct path. But for us, as I mentioned, we got started at the beginning of shelter-in-place restrictions. And so for me, I'm the lead singer-songwriter of a band. Playing music was my whole life. Before quarantine, we were performing at gigs every weekend. We were practicing, and music is just something that I'm really passionate about. And then obviously, once quarantine hit, we couldn't leave our houses, and I could no longer practice with my band, which was one of my favorite things to do. So I turned to music as an outlet, and I actually had the idea of using this time to actually promote more music and make quarantine a little bit more enjoyable for children. And so you guys know that Quarantunes connects teens with children. And so the very, very first thing that we did was, before we even had a product or anything, we just built our team of teachers, because I wanted to make sure that there was interest on the teaching side. So I just reached out to all of the musician friends I knew just to see if there's interest, and everybody immediately responded with such positive feedback saying, of course, yes, I would definitely be interested. So that was really how we figured out that there was an interest in this. And then we also built our board practically right away. I reached out to a bunch of friends who were looking for something to do during quarantine because they were bored. So we were able to give people some positions and set them up. So like we had someone in charge of our publicity, had someone in charge of communications, and things like that. So that helped from the beginning to delegate a lot of work. But I do want to stress, though, that at the beginning, you will have to be doing all the work yourself. Even though I thought it would be like great to hand marketing over to other people, I wasn't really seeing results when other people were marketing it. And I only saw results when like I was marketing it. That's changed. But I think at the beginning, it's really important to know that you kind of will have to be doing all of the roles, because you're the one who knows your organization the best. You're probably the most passionate about it. So you'll be able to do all of the positions a lot better than everyone else at first. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about was, at the beginning, when I had this idea, it was just so overwhelming for me. I was on one of my daily quarantine walks and the idea hit me, and I love the idea of having, this organization, spreading music and whatever, but I just wasn't sure what to do, as I'm sure you guys might be feeling as well. Like, I didn't even know how to get started. And so something that was really instrumental to us, I think, was I just immediately sat down and broke it up into a series of steps. And this might sound cliche or cheesy or whatever, because you might have heard it before, but it actually really did help me to set it up as, really attainable goals, as opposed to some big picture idea. So one of my first goals was just get 10 teachers on board, just 10. And that was easy. I was able to find 10 teachers almost right away. Next goal was create the website, so I had these goals and I would work on them one at a time. And then the last thing I really wanted to talk about is your mindset, and mostly how I questioned myself. Because at the beginning, as I was setting up the website, I was spending like 20 hours a day, literally. I was just creating the website, and it was a lot of work, and it was just it was like a lot of work and kind of overwhelming. And I wasn't even sure if people would even use it. Like, I just didn't know if it would be worth it at the end of the day. I didn't know if there was like a desire on the other end for these lessons. And so I kind of really had to convince myself to push through, even though I had so much doubt. And people were telling me too. I mean, why would people take lessons from teenagers when they could take lessons from adults? Like, it doesn't make sense. And so I thought it made sense, but a lot of people didn't agree with me. And so I would oftentimes question myself, should I even make this website? Like, it was just a lot of work, but I pushed myself through, and I really convinced myself to be in the mindset that yes, it will be used, it will be popular. And I had to do that because that was really what motivated me to get through that first push of actually getting this idea off the ground. Okay, so I was just talking about the website. And so Emmy and I really wanted to spend a large chunk, or not large, but a few minutes at least talking about the website, because both of us agree that your website is really, personally, I feel it's as important as every other aspect of your organization, including customer service and even your product. I might even argue it's more important than your product, but that's up for debate. But I definitely believe that your website is just extremely important. Why? It's the first thing people see when they Google the name of your organization. It's the first thing you'll show people when they ask about your organization. It's literally the face of your company. Like, your website is your company. I mean, in Emmy's case, it is her whole company.
Yeah.
And especially, I want to stress, especially as teenagers, there are a lot of people creating nonprofits these days, and it's really hard to tell whose are, really, really genuine, and, who is really mature and professional. And so I really think that your website can show that. Because with Quarantunes, we've gotten a lot of like feedback on our website telling us that like our website was the reason they decided to sign up for lessons, and our website was like why they thought of Quarantunes as a legit company basically from day one. And that was because we spent so much time making sure that the website looked professional. It didn't look like it was just created by some kid. It looked like it was a real company, and we really just wanted to make a difference, and it wasn't just something like done for college apps or whatever. So your website's really, really important is what I'm trying to say. And so I was just really quickly, I just wanted to add on to that it is definitely worth it, because of everything I just said, to invest time. Like I said, I spent many hours a day creating my website, or maybe even hire someone if you're not that great at it yourself. For me, I got one of my friends on board. He was great at graphic design, so I just asked him if he could help out. He's now our CTO. But we wouldn't be where we were today if I hadn't reached out to someone for help, or hadn't invested so many hours into our website. So yeah.
Yeah, and building off Julia's point, a lot of adults are kind of skeptical of teenagers starting organizations. They're like, oh, like it's better if an adult does it. But if you have a really great website, they see that and they're automatically impressed. I think that really helps you sell your product. And also, as Julia mentioned, it's worth investing as much time as possible as you can in your website. I know that, as I mentioned, for Teens Volunteer, I spent a year building the site. There are so many different aspects of it with the login flow and the posting mechanisms and managing listings that I need to work on. So I spent so much time focusing on making that the best part of my organization. I mean, it is my organization, but I think it's worth investing a lot of time and asking others for their advice, and spending as much as you can on your website.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is some of the elements of building a website. So I know that this can be pretty daunting for people when they're starting their organization and they're like, oh, I have to build this big website. But we're going to try to break that down into some more attainable steps to make it easier for you guys to understand on starting a website. So the first thing you want to think about is how you're going to build it. So you can either use code, which is very customizable but requires a lot of skill and time, or you can use a template-based software like Julia and I did, like WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, and so many more. And I think both of us highly recommend using a template-based software, because you can get a website started in like an hour or two, and there's a lot of customizability with design. But then also they have these nice templates that you can use that make it really easy, especially if you're not someone who has a lot of experience in design. So I know that for Teens Volunteer, we use WordPress because it allows us to insert custom code snippets, which has been really helpful, because we had this whole posting mechanism where organizations can post directly on the site. And so we had to use a lot of code to get that all started while still using WordPress. So I definitely recommend using that. And the next thing I want to talk about is a bit of some of the costs of websites. So I know that if you're a teenager starting an organization, you don't always have a lot of money behind your venture. So building a website can be kind of expensive sometimes, but here are some of the main costs. So the first is buying a domain name. This can be really, really cheap or really expensive depending on the name that you're going for. And then also you have to worry about paying for hosting, which is basically ensures that your site is running at all times and it prevents it from crashing. And that again can add up over time. So I think that these are really important costs to consider when starting your site. I know that for Quarantunes, they use a Wix package, which kind of handles it all. So that might make it easier if your website isn't the biggest part of your organization. But for Teens Volunteer, we go to different companies to get different hosting platforms and different services because our website is our organization. And it's really, really important for what we do.
Yeah, and just adding on to what Emmy was saying, I really, really, really want to plug Wix. I mean, Wix has been our savior. Wix is amazing. It's so insanely easy to use. Like, you would not believe it. It's so easy to get something up and running, and it has like a million free features. Like, you could create your whole website for free. The only thing you'd really have to pay for is if you want to have a custom domain, and it's still not that much. I think we're paying like $7 a month. I think it might even be like $7 total. I don't exactly remember, but whatever, it's super cheap anyway. And I just highly, highly recommend Wix. I mean, they're all great, but Wix is just, I have a bias towards Wix. And so then really quickly, kind of to show you how much progress can be made on a website. The website is always, always a work in progress. I was just editing it just now. I don't think there's ever such thing as like a completed website because for us, we're always, always working on improving it. But this is our very, very first draft. As you can see, there are a few things not quite that great. We spelled Quarantunes wrong, which was one little aspect of it, but we've made progress in that area. And this is our current version of it. As you can see, it's very put together, aesthetically pleasing. You can tell what we're all about, what we do right from first glance. There's not really any confusion about that. It's pretty much all written there, but it's not too clustered, not too crowded. So yeah, it's kind of nice to look at, in my opinion. But I would not have been able to do that myself. Just want to stress that point. I've done graphic design before, but I'm not that great. So I had to get someone else on board, which was why Quarantunes became successful, I think. Because if it had just been me, it would have been kind of a disaster. So I got some help in that area.
Yeah, and this is the Teens Volunteer homepage. So, I spent so much time working on this. So this is kind of what it looked like from the beginning. But I've been working on it, for the past 2 years, constantly editing and updating it and, working with new design trends, trying to keep it, trendy, but also simple and sleek. As you can see, there's a very clear call to action on the homepage. It says, find your next volunteer opportunity. I think that it's really important that your user goes to your site and within the first couple seconds of looking at it, they know exactly what your organization is about and what they can do to get involved. I think we've made that really clear with this homepage.
Mm-hmm.
And then here is our postings page. This is just a handful of the many volunteer opportunities that we list. As you can see, we tried to, employ a very minimalistic layout where people are able to get all the important details that they can just by looking at it. So, we have the location, we have the opportunity date of the posting, as well as, a nice photo to go along with it. I think that we tried to combine as many of these really important design elements as possible to make it easy for our user to use.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're talking about is marketing and how to get people to use your service once you have your organization off the ground.
Okay, so for Quarantunes, there were two major demographics that we're really trying to reach, and they were very different from each other. So one of them was obviously the teenagers. In order to even present our services, we needed to have a team of teachers. And so we had a very specific way of getting in touch with them. And then there was also the adults, right? So we were trying to really market to adults who could sign their kids up for our lessons. And so we really started with the teens. And so for reaching out to teens, I think for me, I kind of had already had this network of musicians that I built when I was off at summer camp. I went to a music summer camp a few years ago in Michigan, and so I was able to build a lot of musical connections through that from all over the country. So those are all people that I reached out to almost immediately when starting Quarantunes, which is how we were kind of able to become nationwide really quickly. So just texting people, like, send that text. I've kind of created this motto for myself, which is that, if you're ever kind of like uncertain about sending a text, if it's about something like this, maybe asking someone to get involved in your organization or whatever, just send it, because it can never hurt. And so for me, I kind of was like not really shy about that. I just reached out to every single musician I knew, even musicians I didn't really know, like maybe someone I just followed on Instagram that I knew that did music. I would send them a DM. And so, I could have been shy about it, and I could have kind of been passive about it and been like waiting for people to get on board. But for me, I believe marketing is just like an incredibly aggressive thing in and of itself. So you can't just passively do marketing. It has to be very aggressive. So I reached out to every single person I knew, sent out like a million texts. And that was honestly the best thing I could have ever done. I mean, the first text I sent out was to someone that I knew that had already graduated from my school, but I knew that she did like coding and computer stuff. So I just texted her and I was like, hey, like I'm making this organization, whatever, like, would you want to be involved? And then I remember she didn't respond to my texts for like a few days. And I was like, I'm not giving up. So I texted her again, because you can't really be shy about this stuff. And then she finally responded and was like, sure, yeah. And I got on a call with her, and she became our CTO or COO. And she was literally the reason why Quarantunes got big. Like, I'm not exaggerating. She was the one who kind of handled all of our like digital stuff. So found the service that we would use for like our scheduling for lessons. She just did everything. She organized, she created head teachers. I mean, she made our organization organized, and I'm not good at organizing stuff, but so send that text. Anyway, and so then the other stuff that we did to reach teenagers was just, we really aggressively posted on social media, and it wasn't just me, which I think some people can not make that mistake, but some people will just like post once and be like, okay, whatever. But for me, I was like, that wasn't enough for me. So I had all of our board members and all of our teachers post on social media. I gave them things to post. And because of that, we were able to reach people in a ton of different circles. And I think we got basically like our whole batch of first teachers just because people had seen posts about us on social media. So use social media aggressively. And then for adults, we as teenagers did not have many adults in our circles. So what we really aimed to do was have our parents spread the word to fellow parents. And specifically parents of little kids. And I think for me, I had a younger sister, so I was able to reach out to kind of like her network. But to other board members, they would have parents or like family friends who had little siblings, and then they would ask them to spread the word to their network. To other parents who would have little kids. So they would use Facebook and Nextdoor. And I would say Facebook was literally like our catalyst. Facebook groups were how we got across the country. I mean, parents would see a post, they would share it in a different Facebook group, and we were able to get into a ton of different niche Facebook groups, which was cool. And the other thing I wanted to say was we did initially spend some money on Instagram ads because we weren't sure. We wanted to see maybe like if that would make a difference. And we realized that we basically weren't really reaching anybody through Instagram. And so I think what the lesson we learned from that is people will only want to use something, like use a service, if they hear about it from somebody they trust. And I'm sure you guys all know that. Like if your friend texts you about, I don't know, like some random thing. I'm just going to use like Curology as a random example, but I see ads for Curology on my Instagram like every single day, and I never tap on them. But then one of my friends texted me about it, someone who I know and trust, and she told me she'd used it and it worked, and that was the only reason why I tried it out. And so I think just generally people will only listen to people that they trust. So we tried to reach out to those people that other people trust. So we reached out to a ton of school principals, elementary school principals, middle school principals, and they would send out emails to their students. And that was how we were able to get so many people. Because if you see an email from your principal, you're likely to check it out, as opposed to if you just, I don't know, like see an ad for it, right? And then the last thing I really wanted to emphasize is that phrasing can make or break your kind of your kind of attempt to get someone involved. Because for me, when I was trying to find teachers, I initially started by texting people and putting it like as like, oh, do you want to volunteer time to like teach a kid music lessons, which I mean sounds nice. And there were definitely some teachers that signed on to that. They were like, yeah, I'm a great person. I want to like help the world. I want to do good. But there were definitely other people who had to be more convinced. And so I would say things like, do you want something to put on your college apps? Do you want something to make your resume look impressive? Do you need community service hours? And kind of phrase it in a way that's super appealing to these people. And so that helped instrumentally. I mean, we were able to get hundreds of teachers just by advertising it as a way to get community service hours, which is something that a lot of people need right now. And it's not that easy from home. So. And then I just added this on, but we also just did a raffle. We told all of our teachers, you know, whoever recruits 2 teachers by the end of this week will be put in a raffle for a $50 Amazon gift card. So we were able to almost like double our teachers in a week just through that.
Yeah, so for Teens Volunteer, we had a bit of a different marketing strategy, but we kind of followed the same principles. So our guiding idea was that we had needed to know our audience, but also know how to reach our audience in the most effective way. So first, we used social media, which is kind of a classic way to advertise something. We used Instagram and LinkedIn, and then we also reached parents of teens through Nextdoor and Berkeley Parents Network, and those were all really helpful in getting teens to use our site, but they were a little bit more passive than some of our other methods. The next thing we did, which actually was really helpful for Teens Volunteer, was Instagram ads. So Instagram lets you customize who is seeing your ads, like very specifically. So for us, we are able to target our ads towards people who are under 18, who live in California, and who are interested in volunteering and social issues and activism. And then that's a little bit scary that you can like target it that specifically, but that was really helpful for at least for Teens Volunteer in getting us more team members. And then, but the most successful marketing technique was actually a little bit more unconventional. So we cold emailed thousands of high school counselors. And you might think that's kind of, maybe that isn't the most direct way to do it, but actually high school counselors, you know, they have hundreds of students sometimes. So they are able to reach so many teens from all over the country who are exactly our demographic. And so what my team and I did is that we made a spreadsheet with over 2,000 high school counselors all over California, and we individually emailed and called every single one of them, asking them to share Teens Volunteer with their students. And you know, the majority of them, they don't respond or they don't share it with the students, but the ones that do were able to have just lead to so much growth for our site. And like, I saw a direct correlation between sending more emails to counselors and having our page views and our numbers go up tremendously. But now it's really important to kind of step outside the box when you're thinking of marketing techniques and going beyond what's just conventional. And then something else that I didn't add on the slide that we've been doing recently is we've been contacting different volunteering groups at high schools, like National Honor Society, Interact Club, and other volunteer clubs. And that's been really helpful for us too, because again, like counselors, these volunteer organizations are looking to get teens involved in their community, and they have access to hundreds of teens all over California. And again, that's been really, really helpful in helping us reach a lot more teenagers.
Yeah, that's so true. And also, I just wanted to add on that I recently borrowed Emmy's spreadsheet that she's talking about to reach out to a bunch of counselors about quarantines. And I have never seen this much growth in such a short amount of time. I mean, in the past week, we've gotten 25 new teachers, which has been crazy. And I honestly, I didn't even do it individually because I don't have the patience for that. I just copied and pasted all of their emails, put them in one giant BCC, and 97% of them didn't respond, but also I'm sure some of them, though, even the ones that didn't respond, still spread the word about it. So we got a ton of teachers. I'm sure that's how some of you guys might have actually heard about this talk, which is kind of funny. But yeah. Okay, so I wanted to spend a little section of time talking about news coverage because it's something that I get asked about so frequently. I'll get DMs about this all the time and emails because Quarantines has been featured in a pretty substantial amount of news outlets. As you can see, some of them are listed here, but there are also other ones that aren't here. But we were on Fox 2, KTVU, the San Francisco Chronicle, SF Gate 99.7 Now, KQED, NPR. We were also on iHeartRadio, which is one of the newer ones. And I think there are definitely aspects of it that it was really timely. A lot of news outlets were looking for kind of like a cute quarantine story to share. but I think there were definitely other aspects of it as well. And the biggest one was cold calling. That cold calling was how we got pretty much all of our first round of news coverage. Because like I said, like I'm not generally shy about this stuff. So one day, actually there was probably like a 3 or more days where literally all I did all day was I would sit down with my phone in hand and I would just like made a spreadsheet of every single news outlet in California, like even the tiny ones that like no one reads. And I just called every single one, and probably like 70% didn't pick up. And the other 30% did pick up, which is crazy because then I'd like be on the phone with the news and then I'd freak out because I didn't know what to say. But I would try to pitch quarantunes, and every single news outlet that picked up wrote a story about us. Because once you pitch it to them, it's like kind of interesting enough that they actually do want to write a story about it. So cold calling is like amazing because once you're on the phone with them, you really can sell yourself as opposed to emails that just get lost. And so, yeah, cold call them. I mean, we also did email a lot of them. And one of the first stories that was written about us was because we had emailed them and reached out to them. Like I said, we made a spreadsheet. I just emailed like every single news outlet, like literally in all of California. And then we got an email back from the San Mateo News. And I still remember that moment because it was the first news outlet that offered to write a story about us. And I didn't even know who they were, but I was so excited. And so I got on the phone with them, did an interview, and that was our first story. And it, like I said, it's not that big of a news outlet, but then I added this on here, no news outlet is too small, because it actually turned out that there had been a reporter from KQED that had read the story on the San Mateo News who got in contact with me after that. So all press is good press. I mean, if you can get any, even like a small newspaper. We were featured in like a bunch of small online sites that like they don't reach that many people, but you never know who it's reaching. So this one actually reached the really big reporter. And speaking of that reporter, her name was Chloe Veltman. I actually kind of became friends with her over the course of the time that we did the story and everything else. She gave a talk with Quarantunes, and she has been a reporter for the New York Times, for NPR, and for a lot of really, really big news outlets. And so there was one day that I texted her after we'd kind of like formed a friendship, and I asked her like what was her advice for getting in more mainstream media, because we had big ambitions. And so she actually called me and we had like an hour and a half long conversation about really what I could do to help get our name out there even more. And the biggest thing that I got from this conversation was writing a press release. And so this is exactly what she told me to do. And so writing a press release is really important in the way that you format it, because she told me with every word that you write, there's a 10% chance that the journalist will not have gotten that far. So like every word, it takes 10% away. I'm not describing it right, but you guys get the idea. So for example, basically what she said we should do is put all of the important and eye-catching information up there right at the top, bolded, everything. So here, as you can see, we put one sentence that we thought was kind of impressive, kind of interesting, kind of eye-catching at the very top of the publication, so that the journalist could see it and immediately be hooked. Because a mistake that we'd made early on was kind of like hiding all of that information in like a long kind of essay format, and like obviously nobody's going to read through that whole thing. So that's definitely some advice I would have for you guys. Okay, so the last section of this presentation, I really wanted to spend talking about some of Quarantunes' partnerships, because we have quite a few and they've really been instrumental to our growth into who we are as an organization. So I'll just start off with our very, very first partnership. And this actually happened like within the first week of us being an organization. And what happened was I reached out to a friend of mine who lived in Texas, who I'd met through my music summer camp that I told you guys about. And a few years earlier, she had started her own organization that connected teen musicians with children to go to foster homes and to go to hospitals to really jam out and just share their love of music. And so that organization was called Soul Note, and they'd been around for a few years, so they'd kind of already established a large team of teachers. They had chapters all over the country. They had chapters in Dallas, New York, LA, all over the place. And what happened was they had to actually be put on halt because of quarantine. They couldn't go see those kids as they normally would. And so what they did is they actually funneled all of their teachers and all of their students into Quarantunes. So we got really big really quickly, and that was largely because of them. We had all of their teachers join us and all of their students join us. And so that was why within the first week, we already had like 50 teachers and a ton of students. So that was really cool. And so I wanted to tell you guys about that, because I'm sure if you guys are trying to start organizations right now, there are probably, similar organizations that maybe were a thing before quarantine but had to be put on hold because of quarantine and because of shelter in place, even though we're not really sheltering in place, but because of social distancing and things like that. So it definitely makes sense to look into other organizations that maybe had to stop or change their format to see if you can like piggyback on that, because we were able to do that with Soul Note. So another type of partnership, so that type of partnership, I would say it's like a mutual marketing partnership. We helped spread the word about Soul Note, and they had just published this book, which is really cool. So we helped spread the word about their book, and then they helped spread the word about us. But then another type of partnership that we also engaged in was referral for payment, and that was with Camp Curious. And so over the summer, we hosted this really awesome 6-week summer camp. There were 12 sessions. Each session had like 20 kids, but we had a super huge wait list. We had a wait list of like 50 something people that we just literally could not fit into the camp because we did not have enough room, and we didn't want the camp to be too large. And so there was another company that got in contact with us called Curious.com, and they were also trying to start a summer camp. And they knew that we had a lot of children that, just didn't have a summer camp to go to, but really wanted one. So they actually offered us a referral for payment kind of partnership, where every student or every child that we referred to them, they would give us like $20 or something. And so that was another type of partnership, but you have to be careful with that one because you don't really want to give away your customers generally. But for that one, the only reason we did it was because we just could not provide services to those. Another type of partnership, this one's also, I'd say, like a mutual marketing type one. This one was with My Promise Project. It was created by a top 20 Billboard artist, Laura Downs, and she actually got in contact with us, did a masterclass for us, and then asked if we wanted to partner. And what My Promise Project does is they give weekly workshops to middle school age children on music, on art, just generally helping people express their creative side. And so we helped spread the word about My Promise Project. We gave them, it was a great thing for our customers as well. And so we kind of did like a mutual marketing thing. And a lot of our customers did end up signing up for My Promise Project workshops, which is really cool. And then the last type of partnership that we're doing right now is with a really cool organization called Narika. And Narika was founded 30-something years ago, and they work with thousands of survivors of domestic abuse to help them get back on their feet. And so with Quarantunes, they reached out to us, and what we've been doing is providing survivors really awesome group songwriting lessons, group art classes, and things like that, taught by professionals. And so that's been, music and art is just, I think anybody who does music would agree, it's just the most therapeutic thing in the world, and it can be very healing. So we've been offering that to their clients, which has been a really cool partnership. Okay. Thanks for speaking with us. That was a lot of talking, but yeah.
Yeah. Now we're opening up for questions, so feel free to unmute and ask anything or drop any questions you have in the chat.
Should I stop sharing my screen? Actually, I'll just say,
I think you can keep it up.
Yeah. So this is just the last slide. This is our contact information is here. Feel free to get in touch with us at any point. You can like screenshot it or anything if you want. But we're more than happy to talk to you guys outside of this. And we'd love to talk to you guys about your questions and stuff. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so it's more personal, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the first question is, do you need a permit to start your own company? So in terms of like, if you're just starting like your own kind of organization, there's no like legal paperwork that's involved, at least for Teens Volunteering Quarantunes. We haven't really done anything like that. However, if you want to become a registered 501c3 nonprofit, which is basically like the government recognizes you as a nonprofit, which is helpful if you're getting a lot of funding. There's a few steps you can go through with that. It takes a while, but you work with the Department of State or something like that to file paperwork to become recognized by the government. And then you can also become just a normal corporation. And also that, again, requires a lot of paperwork with the government, but neither Julia or I has done that for our organizations, and we've been totally fine.
Yeah, so just adding on to that, I did want to address that point because Quarantunes, we don't ask for money in exchange for our lessons, but there is kind of like a suggested donation. So it's not mandatory, but people do donate in exchange for our lessons. And I just wanted to throw this out there. We've raised $35,000 for different charities. We raised money for the CDC Foundation, and we also raised money for the Save the Music Foundation, and just, different charities. And I think for Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, we're going to be donating money to Narika, because, a lot of people have been donating because they enjoy our services. And so we did all of that through GoFundMe. So at the beginning, we tried to have a PayPal. PayPal was being annoying. And it stopped letting us accept money because it thought there was something suspicious going on. So we just used GoFundMe, and all of the money goes directly to the charity. So there's kind of no question about it. We just set up a GoFundMe for the CDC, and everybody donated there. And we raised $30,000 for the CDC through our GoFundMe page. And so for a long time, I personally just really wanted to be, a nonprofit, because I had seen all these people starting nonprofits, and I was like, I just want to go through the paperwork, whatever, so that we can be a nonprofit. I didn't really know why. I just wanted to be a nonprofit. And the thing is, what I realized is we really none of us are getting paid, and we're not really accepting any funding at this moment. So there really was no reason to. And we spent many hours for a long time figuring out what the process was, getting on calls with people. And it seemed very complicated, and it just did not seem worth it to us because we did not need to be for our purposes. So if you are wanting to be accepting funding and you have a different kind of business model, by all means, you should look into that. But it didn't make sense for us. And I would say, don't waste your time on that if you don't think it's going to be necessary.
Yeah, adding on to that, if you are actively accepting donations to your organization, becoming a 501c3 basically makes it tax deductible for your donors so that they don't pay any taxes on those donations, which is really nice for them. So if you're looking to accept a large amount of money for your organization, I think it's worth it to go through the process. It does take a couple months and a lot of paperwork and many hours writing out boring documents about your board of directors and your different amendments or whatever. But I think that it's worth it if that's your business model. But for Teens Volunteer, the funding we've gotten from a few different awards that we've won, it's been pretty minimal. We don't need to create a 501c3 in order to keep our business going, which is why we don't have one.
Okay, how did we come up with our names?
I mean, for us, I feel like our name is pretty self-explanatory because it's just teens and volunteering, and I didn't even think teensvolunteer.org would be available, but it was, which is really great.
Yeah, so for us, again, it's kind of hard to explain. It kind of came to me one day. I was on my quarantine walk when it all came to me. I was like, quarantunes. Oh my God, it's so punny. So that was kind of where it came from for me. There wasn't a long brainstorming thing where I was thinking about things. It just kind of came to me at the same time. And then just adding on to the domain part. So when I was trying to find a website for Quarantunes, there was nothing available with Quarantunes. Quarantunes.com was taken, Quarantunes.org was taken, and all of that. So I settled with Quarantunes.site, which actually was a lot cheaper. That domain was only $7 because it's a .site domain. But it really just doesn't make a difference to your company, and it was super cheap. So yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. And the next question is, how do you market your organization to appeal to donors? Julie, do you want to answer this one? Because we don't really get any donors.
We don't really have. Oh, well, so if you're talking about parents, because we do get donations from parents, but that's not to us as an organization. It's to the CDC or it's to our charity. For us, it hasn't been necessarily marketing it. We just basically ask for donations. It's not that. We don't think about it that much. So, after lessons, parents will receive emails saying, we hope you enjoyed our lesson. If your child had a good time, we were wondering if you could donate in exchange for your lesson to our GoFundMe page. And generally, parents have been really nice about that. And actually, one thing that we did think about a lot at the beginning was whether we should, mandate money, have it be a required in order to take our lessons, or if it should just be suggested donation. And I actually think we're able to raise far more money by having it be suggested, because A, more people could take our lessons, and people who couldn't afford to donate didn't have to donate, or they would just donate a little bit. And B, people are really generous, and if you're not asking them for money, they're usually going to want to donate more. So I don't know if that answers your question a little bit. You can let us know if you didn't really answer it, but.
And then the next question is, did you ever have to pay someone for the logo or graphic design portion? So for Teens Volunteer, I didn't at all. I used some free logo website like Logo Joy or something like that, and I just found my icon. Then I was just able to customize the colors to suit my organization's like theme. And then in terms of website design, we didn't hire any graphic designers either for that. I just kind of did it all on my own. I just watched a bunch of like UX design trend videos on YouTube and kind of picked up some of their ideas and added that to my site.
Yeah, so actually I did want to talk about this a little bit too, because at the beginning, for our very first marketing poster, I was like, I want this to be great and like artistic and whatever. So I reached out to an artist that I knew, and they ended up charging me $40 for a poster. And it was a nice poster, but it wasn't like out of this world. It was basically like sign up for free virtual lessons. And so after I created the poster, this guy that I knew was basically like, I could have made the same thing for you for free. And so at that moment, I kind of realized like, yeah, I could be spending money on this, but there are definitely, I had connections that could have done it for free because they wanted to be involved in the organization. So I'd say if you know people, you can get them involved. And so this guy, his name is Rohn, he's become our CTO. And so kind of by giving him that title, which is like a big responsibility, it's like, okay, you're CTO of this company. He kind of like, he is obliged to make all of our kind of graphics and the website and our posters and things like that. And so we don't have to pay him. And there are definitely, I would say, definitely probably a lot of high schoolers who are looking to be involved in organizations right now. It's really, really fun. You get to feel like you're making a tangible impact on your community, and especially juniors and seniors, college apps, right? So even though there might be people in it for like maybe not the same reason as you, if they're going to be willing to like help you with your design and help you with creating posters, you can just like give them a position and people will do it for free. So I would say like don't pay for it unless you really, really can't find anyone.
Yeah. And then also adding on to that really quickly, both Julia and I use a platform called Canva to design everything. All of our Instagram posts, our posters, including this presentation, we use Canva, and it's totally free to use. They have thousands, I think even millions of templates and graphics and animations that you can use. I think that you don't have any design experience. Like I didn't have any design experience. I've been able to design everything through Canva, and it's been super easy and it looks very professional, even though I have like no prior experience with it.
It's amazing, like amazing. I can't even stress that enough. Let me pull up the chat. Okay, how did you market your businesses to look different from similar companies?
I mean, for Teens Volunteer, I don't think there's anything like it. At least, things that focus on listing volunteer opportunities, specifically in California. But I mean, the only sites that are similar to Teens Volunteer are ones for everyone, like Volunteer Match, which is opportunities for kids, teens, adults, and elderly people. So I think that there's nothing that's really similar for us. That doesn't really apply.
I think kind of same thing for us. There were definitely a lot of similar things that came up after we got started. But yeah, so I mean, for us, I didn't really have the mindset of like, oh, I want it to look really different from other companies. I think it just was different because it in and of itself was kind of a different idea. And so, I mean, we used a template for our website because it's just, templates are amazing and it makes it so much less work. So we used a template, so it is going to kind of look similar to other websites, and it's going to look like a normal website, but we also did try to make it look like as nice of a website as possible by adding a lot of graphics and images and things like that. So I don't think our website necessarily looks super unique. It just looks like a website. But I think that because we are a unique company, it kind of has that touch to it. Because there are no other companies that do exactly what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a lot of things you had to take care of to receive money? Okay, so I can talk about this one really quickly. So as I mentioned, at the beginning, I kind of had set up a PayPal account for myself. And PayPal, I think it's really weird, and because I was underage, I had to lie about my age or something. I don't exactly remember, but so I created a PayPal account for myself, and at the beginning, it was working fine. And then after about a few weeks, I mean, people were constantly putting money into it. Like we'd be getting like $20, $30 donations like 10 times a day, if not more, for our lessons. And so after about a week of that, all of a sudden PayPal stopped letting us accept money. and we were still getting donation after donation after donation, and eventually it ended up being like hundreds of dollars that PayPal was just putting on hold that were never getting off hold. And it was a stressful situation for us because people were like donating money and we didn't want it to just not go anywhere. So we ended up not using PayPal and creating a GoFundMe page. And there were some other like annoying things about PayPal. So in order to have a business PayPal account where it actually let you accept large amounts of money, you had to upload paperwork, which we didn't have. And there was just a lot of things like that. So GoFundMe is just the absolute easiest way to accept a large amounts of money, especially if it's all targeted at another organization. I'm not sure how it would work if like I was on the receiving end of it, but because we set up the GoFundMe page to donate to the CDC, it was like very easy.
Yeah. And for Teens Volunteer, our site pretty much runs itself. Our costs are very, very minimal. And the money that we have received, it came through a grant that we received from this one award that we won. So I don't really have a lot of expertise with receiving money and things like that, but I know that Julie definitely does.
Okay, so the business entity, we did talk about that, but I can like summarize it again really quickly. Neither of us registered for any kind of business entity, and it's been totally fine. Like we said, it's my personal belief that it only makes sense to spend all of the hours on paperwork and figuring out what to do and all of that if you want to be accepting like funding to your organization, or I don't know, if you want it to be tax deductible for people who are donating. But if that's not something that you really care about that much, I would say don't waste your time on it. I wasted a lot of time on it. So I'm telling you from personal experience.
Same. I spent so much time working on it. And actually, if your organization does need 501c3 status, there's an easier way to do it, which is through fiscal sponsorship. Basically, another 501c3 kind of takes you on as like you're their child company or whatever. But I was gonna go with that for Teens Volunteer, but the fiscal sponsor ended up wanting a lot of ownership over Teens Volunteer, and I wasn't exactly ready to give that up. So if you do need fiscal sponsorship, I think I recommend it if you're looking for a 501c3, but otherwise, if you don't need it, I wouldn't worry about it. You don't need it.
Okay, how do you give community service hours? Okay, so that was a really big question mark for us for a really, really long time, because we had like hundreds of teens volunteering their time to give lessons, and we thought because we weren't a 501c3, we couldn't give them community service hours. So it's kind of like we were trying to figure this out for a while. The organization that we partnered with, Soul Note, we thought if we partner with them and they're a 501c3, they can sign off on all of our people that need their community service hours signed off on. So we did this for a few people where I basically forwarded all of our forms to Soul Note, and it just got to be a hassle. And after a while, we realized, okay, so what are these forms even for? All of these people are using their forms for maybe classes that require community service hours or to send to colleges. And all these forms ask for is a signature and like the name of your company, right? And so we were thinking like, I mean, we're a legit company. If you look us up, like we're completely legit. You can see that these people are actually volunteering their time for us. We have records of that. And also, if, I don't know, whoever's looking at it, like if a college counselor is looking at it, if a school teacher is looking at it, we like highly doubted that they would go through every single organization that was written there, verify that it's a 501c3. So we're like, whatever. So we started signing off on everybody's community service hours, and it's been working out 100% of the time. I don't even know what the rules are about having to be a 501c3, but I mean, we just sign off on them, and we really don't think it's that big of a deal. Because they deserve community service hours. So I would say like if that's the only reason you want to get a 501c3, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and then Teens Volunteer, we don't sign off on people's volunteer hours because we just connect people with organizations, and the organizations handle that themselves.
Okay, how would you recommend branching a business beyond a single area or school? Okay, you can talk about that first if you want.
Okay, so as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, I started off really small in just my city and my county, and then eventually expanded to all of California. I think my biggest recommendation is before you expand, make sure that you have reached as many people as you can in that smaller area. So for example, I started off, we're in the Bay Area, and we made sure to contact every school in the Bay Area. And once we had reached thousands of people just in that area, that's when we expanded beyond to all of California. And I also think that getting extra team members each time you expand is really important. So for us, we hired a few Southern California directors and coordinators because they lived in that area. And since I don't, they offer a lot of expertise and helped us grow in that specific way.
Yeah. And then so for quarantunes, it was a little bit different because, as I mentioned, I had already had a large community of musicians that I knew from all over the country, which is something that I definitely would stress is connections is a big part of anything that you will do in life, but I realized that kind of profoundly with quarantunes because all of the friendships that I'd made from my summer camp were really what allowed quarantunes to expand across the country. So within the first week of our founding, I reached out to all of my friends from across the country. And, you know, they came from literally all over the country, like Dallas, New York, LA, ton of different states. And so we kind of were able to get a team of teachers that came from other parts of the country because of that. But I think another huge thing was word of mouth. I mean, quarantunes grew entirely organically, and word of mouth has been the biggest factor for us and like how people are finding out about us. So Facebook groups. We had originally, when we first got the word out among the Palo Alto community, we found out that a lot of Palo Alto parents were posting in Facebook groups. And like I said, like Facebook groups can be super nichey. So I think one point we were in like a Russian lawyer, Jewish mom Facebook group. So it was super specific. And like someone in the Russian mom lawyer Jewish Facebook group could live in another part of the country and they could take it and repost in another Facebook group that's maybe like another super nichey thing. And so I think that was just a huge thing as being like posted about in different Facebook groups. And then just people telling their relatives. We're getting a lot of people from other parts of the country because like someone had a good experience with our lessons, so they texted their family group chat. Their family members come from maybe a different country or maybe the other side of the country, and so they would tell their friends. So yeah, that was really how we were able to do that. How does quarantunes track teaching hours? So for us, all of our lessons are notated and tracked on our scheduling service, which is called PickTime. On PickTime, it's super easy to set it up. People can go on, select their instrument, select their teacher, select the time. It'll create an appointment. It's super easy to use. It's just like a giant calendar. You can go through and look at all the lessons that are happening that day. It's great and it's completely free. And because of that, there are like lots of different, it can show you different views. So like you can look at different teachers and see how many lessons they've taught in the past month, in the past week. And yeah, so as long as all of our teachers are keeping it updated, it's a really good way to track how many teachers we have, how many customers we have, how many lessons we've given, things like that. So that's how we get all of our numbers on the website. Okay, I think it's 6:01, but we can keep going. Pick time. I'll just put it in the chat. Thank you guys all so much for coming. We're so grateful that you guys wanted to take time out of your day to learn about us.
Yeah, we're so thankful that you guys are all here. And if you still have any more questions, feel free to stay in the call a little bit longer after. I know that it's 6 o'clock, so our time is up. But I just want to say thank you again for everyone for coming. We're really glad that you're here.
And we'll be here for a few more minutes, so you can feel free to stay back if you'd like. Hopefully this was helpful, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was very helpful.
I'm glad.
Awesome.
Yay. And good luck with your organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. You guys can feel free to like unmute yourselves. Questions.
Yeah, if you have any more questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yay, yeah, you should check out PickTime. It's really useful. Okay, I'll end the meeting, I guess, but thank you all again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.